It happened quietly. No explosions, no battles, no dramatic speeches. Just numbers on a screen shifting by fractions of a percent. Yet those tiny shifts sent shockwaves through the global economy. Trillions of dollars moved, markets crashed, and governments panicked. Because when China moves its currency, the entire world feels the tremor. August 11, 2015, Beijing wakes up to a financial storm. The People's Bank of China, the PBOC, makes an announcement that catches everyone completely off guard. The yuan, also known as the renminbi, is going to be devalued. It was just a small adjustment, only 1.9%. But to traders and economists, it might as well have been an earthquake. For years, the yuan had been one of the world's most stable currencies. Now suddenly, it wasn't. Headlines exploded across the globe. China starts a currency war. Global markets tumble. Is the world's second-largest economy in trouble? But behind the panic was something much deeper, a deliberate strategy that had been years in the making. Because China hadn't lost control of its currency. It was using it. To understand why, we have to go back. Back to the 1980s, when China was just emerging from its long isolation. Factories were rising from the ground, special trade zones were opening up, and the world's goods, from toys and shoes to electronics, started carrying three simple words: made in China. The secret to that economic miracle wasn't just cheap labor. It was cheap currency. By intentionally keeping the yuan weak, China made its exports completely irresistible. A weaker currency means foreign buyers pay less for Chinese goods. This simple formula boosted manufacturing, created hundreds of millions of jobs, and pulled an unprecedented number of people out of poverty. It was economic warfare without any bullets, and it worked spectacularly. By the 2000s, China had become the world's factory floor. Its trade surplus exploded. Its foreign currency reserves swelled to over $4 trillion. But this success created a problem. A strong economy usually leads to a strong currency, and investors around the world wanted to buy more yuan. That pressure should have naturally pushed its value higher. A higher currency, however, would mean more expensive exports, and China wasn't ready to lose its competitive edge. So Beijing stepped in. It took control of the exchange rate, buying up massive amounts of foreign currencies and printing more yuan to keep its value artificially low. It was manipulation open, massive, and entirely intentional. Western countries protested, but China just smiled. It was playing a much longer game. Now, let's fast forward back to 2015. After years of incredible double-digit growth, China's economy was finally slowing down. Its factories were producing more than the world could buy. Exports were falling. At the same time, Beijing had a new ambition. It wanted the yuan to be accepted globally, to join the world's elite currencies like the dollar, the euro, the yen, and the pound. To achieve that, the yuan needed to trade more freely, to be seen as market-driven. But freeing the currency risked the very thing China feared most: instability. So the PBOC made a move that was both symbolic and brilliantly strategic. It allowed the yuan's value to adjust, officially to reflect market conditions, but unofficially to make Chinese goods cheaper again. The result was instant shockwaves. Global markets saw it as a desperate cry for help. Stocks plunged. Commodity prices tanked. Emerging markets all over the world followed China down. But here's the twist. For Beijing, it worked. The devaluation stabilized exports, kept the factories running, and restored confidence at home. China may have lost some of its reputation in the short term, but it gained long-term leverage. It showed the world that its central bank could move global markets with a single decision. It was power, quietly displayed, and this wasn't the first time. Back in 1994, China did something far bolder. It slashed the yuan's official rate by nearly 50% overnight. That single act ignited its massive manufacturing boom. Western companies rushed to set up production in China. The world's entire supply chain bent and reformed around its currency. And decades later, the same powerful logic still applied. But the 2015 devaluation had another layer: geopolitics. At that exact moment, China was pushing for its currency to join the International Monetary Fund's elite basket, known as the Special Drawing Rights, or SDR. To qualify, the yuan had to look market-based. So Beijing made a calculated gesture. A small devaluation, followed by a promise of more transparency. The IMF accepted. By 2016, the yuan officially joined the SDR, a huge symbolic victory that crowned China as a true financial superpower. It looked like a loss on paper, but it was a win in the history books. Still, the move had consequences. Investors started pulling money out of China, afraid that more devaluations were coming. Beijing responded by implementing strict capital controls limits on how much money could leave the country. At the same time, it began a quiet transformation, shifting its economy away from an export-driven model to one based on domestic consumption and high technology. The message was subtle but clear: we will keep control, but we will evolve on our own terms. And then came the next twist: digital currency. While the world was busy arguing about whether China's currency was fairly valued, Beijing was building something entirely new: the digital yuan. Unlike Bitcoin, it wasn't decentralized. It was fully controlled by the state, programmable, traceable, and incredibly powerful. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about gaining total control over data, spending, and monetary policy, complete economic visibility. The devaluation had been about the past. The digital yuan was all about the future. So, what did China truly gain from all this? It wasn't just cheaper exports. It gained influence and insulation. By managing its currency, China could weather financial crises that crushed other countries. When the Asian financial crisis hit in 1997, Beijing didn't devalue. It held firm, winning respect across the region. When the 2008 global crash happened, it unleashed massive credit without worrying about foreign exchange shocks. Control of its currency meant control of its destiny. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, especially the United States, had done the opposite. It let the dollar float freely, subject to market panic and speculative storms. In a strange way, the roles had reversed. The capitalist world embraced chaos while the communist state mastered control. Yet that control comes with a cost. A managed currency is like walking a tightrope. If it's too weak, inflation rises. If it's too strong, exports die. Beijing walks that fine line every single day. Every move is both economic and political. Too much manipulation and foreign investors flee. Too little and factories close. It's a constant, tense balancing act. And the world still watches every flicker of the yuan's value as if reading tea leaves for the future. Because China's currency is no longer just a domestic tool. It's a global lever. When it weakens, markets fall. When it strengthens, commodity prices soar. Each tiny adjustment shifts trillions of dollars. But here's the quietest twist of all: devaluation isn't a sign of weakness. It's a strategy. When China lowers its currency, it's not confessing failure, it's buying time. Time to outproduce, outbuild, and outlast its competitors. Time to turn financial moves into political victories. Every small drop in the yuan is a signal to the world: we still decide the rules. In that sense, the 2015 devaluation was never about a rescue. It was a rehearsal, a test of power, of reaction, of control. And the world, for all its panic, played right into Beijing's hands. So what's the lesson here? That in the modern world, currency can be a weapon more precise than any missile. That power today isn't just about land or armies. It's about who controls value itself. And that the strongest economies aren't always those that shout the loudest, but those that can whisper and move markets without a single warning. China devalued its currency, not because it was losing, but because it knew exactly what it was doing. It turned weakness into strategy, panic into policy, and volatility into victory. And perhaps that's the real story. In a world where money defines power, the smartest player isn't the one with the strongest currency, but the one who decides when and how to make it fall. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown interesting, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.